This is 3.1 homework, functions and modeling part 1. And so here we say let the distance d in miles a car has been driven be a function of the number of months t since the start of the year. Use the table below to answer the following questions. So let me remind you, in this homework we're going to deal with functions from 3 different points of view: a table, a graph, and a formula. We start with a table, and we want to talk about, the input. Where is it? Is it on the left or right? It's always on the left. Right? And that means the output is then on the right. It's just like you would read a table in a restaurant, right? You look at the left for the food item, that's the input, and on the right you see the price, that's the output. How far has the car been driven by the end of February? Make sure to fill in the 2 blanks below. Okay, so on this, you might want to say stuff like, what do these numbers represent? 2, 4, 6, 8. So like, 2 is actually the end of February, right? So 1 would represent the end of January, right? So 1 month would be the end of January, 2 would be the end of February, 3, right, January, February would be the end of March, 4, right, the end of April, and so on, right? 5, the end of May, and so on. Okay, and you can keep going down all the way down to 12, which would be the end of December. Okay. And so if I want to figure out, how far has the car been driven by the end of February, what I need to look at, right, the end of February happens at 2, so I go over here to 2, I look over and I say, 500, right? So 500 miles. And I can fill in the 2 blanks below, use functional notation. So this can be expressed as d of 2, input is 2, right, at the end of the second month, and it's equal to 500. How many miles has the car been driven by the start of May? Right, so start of May, right, wouldn't be 5, it would be 4, right? Because the start of May is the same as the end of April. So here maybe I'll write down start of May means t is equal to 4. And all I need to do is go over here and look at, at 4, and I go over and it's 900, right? So this is just 900 miles. And this, again, this is simply found by looking at the table. You look at 4, and the output is 900. Again, we fill in with this functional notation, so d of after 4 months is equal to 900. In part E, it says approximate the number of miles put on the car at the end of July. And so the end of July would correspond to t equals 7, right? Because July is 7 months after the start of the year. And so we can fill in, some of the blanks down here. So in functional notation, we can put a 7 here. And to figure out the output, you come back up to the table, and you see 7 isn't listed in the table, right? It's right between 6 and 8. And so one way to figure this out is to use these 2 points and this idea of average rate of change. So the way we do this is we say, okay, after 6 months, at the end of 6 months, we start at 2,000 miles on our car. So I have 2,000 miles on my car. And then I'm going to add this average rate of change, and the way I find this is I take the change in the output divided by the change in the input. So it's 4,000 minus 2,000, that's a change in the output, divided by the change in the input, which was 8 months minus 6 months. And then I just multiply this, right, by the number of months from 6, right? So I'm going from 6 to 7, so that's just times 1. Okay. And so I can do this. This is equal to 2,000 plus 2,000 divided by 2, right? All times a 1, which equals 2,000 plus a 1,000, so I get 3,000 miles. You could probably just guess at the answer just by looking at the table, right? Between 2,000 and 4,000, right in the middle is 3,000. Right? But this is the idea abstractly. Okay, so D of 7, the distance I've traveled after 7 months, my car has gone 3,000 miles. On part F, we want to predict how many miles the car has driven over the whole year. So over the whole year, T is equal to 12, of course, 12 months. And I can come up to my table and look, and 12 is down here. Let's use a different color. Right, so 12 is down here. And so I want to approximate, how many miles I've driven after 12 months. And so I'll use these 2 points. And so what I can do is I can start at 7,000. So I come down here, and I start at 7,000. And I'm going to add this average rate of change. How is the mileage changing each month? So take 7,000 minus 4,000. The change in the output over the change of the input. So 7,000 minus 4,000. And then I divide by the change in the input, which I think is what, 10? Yeah, so 10 minus 8. And I'll multiply this by the number of months from 10. All right, so the number of months from 10 is 2. So I'll multiply it by 2. And so what I get here, this is equal to 7,000. Right, then plus 7,000 minus 4,000 is 3,000. Divided by 2. And I multiply that by 2. And so this is going to be equal to 7,000 plus 1,500 all times 2, which equals what? 10,000 miles. 10,000 miles. And so I can fill in the space below here. D of 12 would be approximately 10,000 miles.